welcome to the fourth episode of the Creative Wanderer podcast.
Your weekly jaunt into creative inspiration.
I'm Jo, and I'm joined, as I am every week, by the lovely Amelia. Hello, Amelia.
Hello, Jo. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we'll be talking about week 3 of The Artist Way, which deals with recovering a sense of power. We'll be examining the experience of synchronicity and taking a closer look at the strong emotional states that resurface when we step into our creative power.
I cannot wait. If you would like to embark on the journey yourself and want an extra member of your sacred circle, we are very happy to be able to offer you our support in a number of ways. You can email us to let us know what you're enjoying or indeed what you're struggling with at creative_wanderer@yahoo.com. Please follow us on Instagram at Creative Wanderer. You just need to replace part of creative with the number 8 and the beginning of Wanderer with the number 1. Please share any pictures, quotes you've been inspired by, or affirmations which resonate with you.
In week 1 and 2, we recovered our sense of safety and identity. We have set our boundaries and ventured out into new territories. And now we feel both exhilarated and emotional when we are ready to take on more and more responsibilities as creatives.
So the most important question, as it is every week, how did you find this week, Amelia?
Oh, I found it very dynamic. Quite challenging, I must admit. It was very emotional, digging up the past. And also for me, learning how to be vulnerable and how to show self-care by asking for help. That was a bit of an issue. It's not easy to ask for help. However, it is part of our artistic recovery as well as part of life.
Absolutely. I know you do struggle with that, but it's so important to remember that you have your sacred circle and you can always ask them for help. I really did like this week's tasks. I found them quite expansive, actually, and joy giving. I found it fun to go back to my childhood and think about how I was.
Yes.
Quite a strange little creature.
I recovered so many beautiful, warm memories.
Yeah.
And I seem to remember myself being very busy with my hands. Always creating.
Always doing something.
Yeah.
The first thing we're going to embark on this week is anger.
Oh my goodness.
As a child, you're conditioned into managing your emotions. So if you start to get angry, it's shut down quite quickly because it's seen as a tantrum or seen as negative. As we get older, and for me, until reading The Artist's Way, that I start to think of anger as a tool to help me grow.
This section meant a lot to me. I've had so many discoveries. Julia has actually given anger respect. It is a strong emotion. We connect it to irrationality. It's very difficult to reason with people when they're angry or see the truth or the facts when we are angry. But within the artistic recovery, anger points to expansion and a failure to take responsibility for that artistic expansion. So we start changing our habits. We feel safer as artists or creatives. We start doing more. We're expanding into more areas, and it all of a sudden becomes apparent to us, my goodness, we cannot operate the same way we used to operate. We need to change our operating basis. Perhaps we need to take more responsibility now. We need to step out of those time-wasting habits.
Or the things that trigger you. It's so visceral and you can't really rationalize with anger. So then when you're angry with yourself, you're in that horrendous conundrum within yourself. I can't even see my own point of view. It's clouded by this anger. So if you're being triggered, you're watching something or you're reading something that triggers your anger, but what you should be doing is creating.
Or you've been meaning to do something for a long time and you see somebody actually doing the exact thing.
Fury.
You're angry at yourself and then you're angry at the other person. But what you've got to do is stop and say, well, hang on a minute, I procrastinated. I've known I had to do that for a long time. For me, the biggest revelation was use anger as a pointer. It points you towards your next road, your next area of expansion.
The anger map.
That's where you need to be going. That's what you need to be taking responsibility for.
In society, anger is viewed as a negative, unpleasant emotion. It's irrational. Surely you should be able to use that particular type of anger to move you forward.
Yes, there is such a thing as righteous anger, but it is a sign of healing. We are on the right path. We might even feel a lot of anger at whoever actually blocked our creative growth. We might feel angry at ourselves because we didn't do anything. We didn't speak up for ourselves. As Julia says, do not act out your anger act upon your anger.
What direction is it pointing at? Use the energy of your anger, move yourself forward into that creative direction. Marvelous.
The actual permission to feel anger is wonderful. It's not your master, it's the fuel to look at the area you're angry about and saying, okay, what can I do about this?
Then create something magnificent. Transmute it through your art.
There is a Julia's pearl of wisdom.
Anger is not the action itself, it's action's invitation.
I love it. Perhaps that's an invitation for us to take a closer look at synchronicity.
Oh, indeed it is. Synchronicity is the coincidence of events that appear meaningfully related but do not seem to be causally connected, taken by Jungian psychoanalytic theory to be evidence of a connection between the mind and material objects. From late Latin synchronous, which means simultaneous, from Greek synchronos, happening at the same time, from syn, together, and chronos, time.
That's a lovely definition, isn't it? There are some sort of mechanics of the universe behind synchronicity, how quickly that synchronicity starts manifesting in our lives.
It was immediate for you and I. I have found it really incredible putting it out there or just thinking, oh, I wonder if, and then suddenly it was happening. I had an incident where I was thinking, I wonder what I should do next. How am I going to move forward in my life? It was like boom, 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 all of these things occurring.
Magical. It's almost too good to be true, isn't it?
That's how it feels.
And that's the trap that we can fall into when it comes to synchronicity. Oh, it can't be happening. Oh, that was just pure luck. Just pure coincidence. What I got reminded of is be careful what you wish for. And as Julia says, answered prayers are scary. They imply responsibility. You've got to be ready.
You have to be ready. It can happen in a twinkling of an eye.
Once we align ourselves back with our heart's desire, this life force that's actually interwoven in every single particle of life goes, yes, I'm going to help you and I'm going to throw some gifts your way. The challenge is to start accepting synchronicity as something that is manifested by ourselves.
Wow, wow, wow.
It's all about trusting that if we start listening to our gut instinct and follow our creative dreams, synchronicity will appear.
I like to think about this as your dharma. The majority of us who live our life's purpose are creative, connected to flow, and that's when this synchronicity happens, when you're in that flow, in that moment.
Yes.
It doesn't happen when you're static or when you're blocked. It happens when you're moving, when you're in this perpetual motion.
You've just read my thoughts because I wanted to speak to expansion. Once we start recovering on our creative journeys, we start expanding into new areas of life. And synchronicity is intricately tied into that expansion. It does not follow some sort of prescribed linear formula. You might wish for something, but it will come to you in a sort of a roundabout way from somewhere that you think it's not even connected to your field of art or creativity. But somehow, somewhere, somebody knows a person or a thing that you need, and poof, all of a sudden, it appears in your life.
One of Julia's pearls of wisdom, the possibility of an intelligent and responsive universe acting and reacting in our interests.
We've got a friend in the life force that wants us to thrive. Jung called it fortuitous intermeshing of events.
Week 3 for you brought the biggest synchronicity.
It did. We were absolutely exhilarated about the Artist's Way and all the discoveries. We said, we have to podcast about this. 2 weeks later, I was in a Zoom workshop and I met a beautiful woman called Beverly De Silva. She's a journalist as well as a sound healer. And I mentioned to her, I'm doing the Artist's Way. And she says, stop, I just got shivers.
My goodness.
And I thought to myself, wow, if that's not some sort of creative synchronicity phenomena going on there. Beverly said, oh yes, I might look into it myself. 2 weeks later, I get a message from Beverly saying, you will not believe this. I am interviewing Julia Cameron about her new book for BBC Culture.
Wow.
And I immediately got on the phone to you, didn't I?
You did indeed.
Jo, this is such synchronicity. We are on the right path.
Totally.
Julia put it quite succinctly. She says that the universe is prodigal in its support. We are miserly in what we accept. All gift horses are looked in the mouth and usually returned to sender. We say we are scared by failure, but what frightens us more is the possibility of success.
The link to Beverly De Silva's interview with Julia is on our Medium blog page. There's a lovely term, leap and the net will appear. And I have struggled with my connotation of the word faith.
Right.
And I've always thought of that as an external.
Oh,
it's always been
right,
like faith in religion rather than faith in oneself, trusting in yourself
yes.
and your higher power rather than something else. Knowing that if you do leap, you will grow your wings and soar.
Do you know, I always get an image of when my father was teaching me how to swim. And there is always that moment when the support is removed, when he removed his hands. And that's a leap of faith. And I remember that moment so clearly when as a child, I just said to myself, now, Emilia, just swim, swim, swim. The water has you. That net was that water for me that was just holding me up. And all of a sudden, I was swimming all on my own. It's good to remember such moments that we've experienced in our lives to give us courage to actually take another or a new leap of faith.
When you're a child, you don't consciously think of it as a leap of faith, do you? You just think,
right.
I kind of want to be off and on my way, on my own.
And it's good to know that the actual net that will appear is synchronicity. There is a wonderful saying by Goethe, whatever you think you can do or believe you can do, begin it. Action has magic, grace and power in it.
Oh, I love that. Now we're coming on to the big bad beast that is shame. Another master saboteur. It comes out of left field.
When I heard shame on you, it made me feel so small.
Oh, yeah.
The issue is it never comes with an explanation as to why something is shameful.
Yeah.
And the intention and the tone and the delivery immediately makes you feel, oh, I've done something wrong. I better not do that again. I might be punished. So for me, this incredible section reminded me that shame is a huge thief. It robs us of our power.
Yeah.
Not just as creative beings or artists, but actually as people.
You kind of withdraw, don't you, if you feel shamed about something. Why would you share something if you've been shamed for it in the past, or if you've been made to feel small, or had a situation where you've done something and it's been met with anger or worse, indifference?
Right.
I never ever really had the anger, but I think maybe a few times there was, oh, not another piece of art for me to look at, or gosh, here she is dancing around again wanting to be Margot Fontaine.
Stonewalled.
What a horrible word.
That's what happens, I think. You hit a wall because you're presenting yourself so openly and in such a vulnerable way, and it's not other person's fault. You know, they might not be receptive. It is just that feeling that it's not wanted. If it's indifference or if it's rage, like, oh, why are you doing this now? Go and do something more productive. Or outright shaming. Oh, that's rubbish. Who do you think you are? Again, it blocks our creativity and it stops us from that expansion that we constantly are engaged in when we are in our creative power.
Yeah. Julia has a lovely pearl of wisdom. The act of making art exposes a society to itself. Art brings things to light. It illuminates us. It sheds light on our lingering darkness. It casts a beam into the heart of our own darkness and says, see? Oh, that's so true.
It is true. So that takes us from the realm of experiencing shame as children and, you know, young adults, or even at the outset of our creative career, into the fact when we are actually creating any type of gift to the world, if it speaks to the truth and it hits the nerve, the response that we might get from the society, critics, whoever, is, how dare you? We do not look into that closet. We do not look under that carpet, ever.
That's a nice analogy. Because we're all connected, if you're saying something that makes them feel horribly uncomfortable, but they know to be true.
Right.
Ooh.
Yes.
That's a stinger, isn't it?
Exactly. And then that's that lack of enlightenment. Why should I feel ashamed? What's going on? You don't get that. You just get outright shame on you. And like with any festering wound, you need to bring it to light.
You do.
And then it will heal.
That's lovely. What happens is, if you're constantly trying to show your creativity and then it falls on deaf ears, people are stonewalling you, you sort of tell yourself that it doesn't matter, whatever, and you go within yourself.
You just grow that thick skin, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And it's horrible as an artist, as a creative. It's anti to your natural state of being, because you're expansive, wanting to show the world or give the world this gift that you have. And if it's criticised constantly, you then eventually stop.
It's such a thief that really robs us of our power. And it made me look back at my creative life And those moments when I knew I created something really nice, I was really happy about it, but I would get that niggling feeling, it's not good enough.
Yeah.
It connects to the internal shaming mechanism. And this mechanism is not rational.
No.
It just switches itself on, just like that. And immediately there's a little, how dare you? You're not that good. How dare you receive all that praise?
It's another who does she think she is? And when you've detached to numb out the pain, you have to turn that it doesn't matter into you will heal.
I am a human being. One of my human rights is to communicate. I have the right to share myself with the world.
Yeah.
There might be people who are not happy with it.
Stuff them.
Exactly. What's also interesting about shame is the need of approval from others. That's a tricky one.
It is, because really someone else's opinion of you is theirs and theirs alone. Society has crafted this. You're only successful if someone's telling you are.
Exactly.
Rather than knowing you are.
You might spend most of your creative life trying to be worthy of your family's approval and praise, but you might never get it because they're just not willing to give it. How do we make sure that creatively we feel safe?
We get ourselves into our little hatchery, our sacred circle, warm and fluffy, all cozy, to gently hatch into the world our little baby chick of an idea.
That's right. And also, I never go out on a warpath with people. I always try to give them the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps the people who are critical of us could be blocked artists themselves.
Absolutely they are.
And that always gives me that sense of understanding. I come from a place of love. Let it go. They're on their own recovery path.
Maybe what they want is for you to respond with your war hammer in the air. But if you don't do it, you don't give them that food, the negative food for them to yet again make more out of.
That's
sure.
right. You just create your sacred circle. And you know what? They don't have to be artists.
No, they can just be nice people.
Exactly. People who see potential in you and what you are giving to the world is good.
Yes, indeed. And this is another one of Julia's, which is, it's really rung true with me a lot of times actually. And it's this internal monologue. I know that work is good. I thought that work was good. Could I be kidding myself? Maybe that critic was right. And bear in mind that critic is often you. Why did I ever have the nerve to think that I could do that? And the downward spiral begins, and it's a blooming hard slog to get back out of that.
And it's quite extraordinary how actually that can be traced back to shame. Quite a revealing section of this week's chapter. Lots and lots of realizations. And again, I find it very healing because it brings me back to the place and space of love.
Good.
The antidote, as always, are affirmations where we affirm to ourselves that we are worthy of love, of creative expression. It's just about talking to yourself and saying, I'm great. Give yourself a pat on the back.
And remember to give yourself love. It can be anything. It doesn't need to be art related. It's something like having a lovely long soak in the bath or buying yourself a little treat, maybe sending yourself a gift, letting yourself know that you're loved. Keep going, carry on.
Well, sending yourself a love letter. How about that?
That's
Wouldn't
a
that be
lovely
nice?
idea.
You know, some people might find it a bit cheesy, but who cares? Just do it. I've actually learned a lot about self-care and self-love from Joe, funny enough.
Oh,
Joe does little small things in the day to appreciate just living, don't you? And just being yourself.
I feel very grateful for living because 18 years ago I had a tumour removed from my heart and I feel thankful to be alive in the world. So I want to just grasp it and go for it and feel. And it was my heart that was stricken with a tumour. Thing was removed and my heart was free again.
Wow.
And I think that it's my duty as a creative being to send love out whatever way I can, but also to remember to keep a little bit for myself.
Many an occasion, Joe would say, Amelia, you've been working way too much and way too hard. Now it's time, right now, do it now, to just look after yourself. Close that computer and go and do something nice for yourself. Just taking a breath in the day a couple of times and checking in with myself and asking myself, am I actually enjoying what I'm doing? How am I feeling? Is there love in what I'm doing? Or do I just need to slow down a little bit and then take myself out for a walk or eat some nice food? Perhaps even have a nice nap.
You're such a giver of kindness and love, and you're so generous with that.
Thank you.
So it's so interesting that you have to be reminded to give it
Yes.
back to yourself. We're not done yet. We're now moving into it's a crunchy one, folks.
I would say the ugly face of shame.
Dealing with criticism. So Amelia, what is the definition of criticism?
Criticism is the expression of disapproval of someone or something on the basis of perceived faults or mistakes.
Oh, it's just awful, isn't it?
But the thing is, it's perceived.
Yeah, it's the perceived bit that's so cruel because because it's someone else's opinion, someone else's perception of you or your art. It's just, oh.
But the thing is, we are such quick judges. It takes less than 5 seconds for us to make a first impression. It's a snap judgment. We literally, within those 5 seconds, take in a person and we make up our mind. The criticism as well can be a really snap, quick judgment. Because let's say, Joe, you exhibit your beautiful art. I don't know you. All I see are your paintings.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like it. Or I love it. I've never met you.
It's not a judgment of character on
Exactly.
me. It's just an immediate reaction. That's why art's so subjective.
Criticism should never be taken personally, and that's one of the hardest things to do.
So difficult.
It's a skill or ability that one has to practice throughout their whole life, I think.
It certainly is.
It's good to understand where it comes from. How well do we trust that person? Does that person actually have anything to do with our field of art, or are they just throwing around their opinion left, right and centre? I like to call it development feedback rather than criticism.
But that's only if.
That's positive.
Yeah.
But it ties into my understanding. Is it helping me develop, or is it just a block? They've contributed nothing. I don't mind bad, good criticism. It's just learning how to discern who is the source and how valuable is it.
Yeah.
Let's admit there is some really valuable criticism.
Critique is a lot nicer than criticism, isn't it? Critique sounds upbeat. Criticism just doesn't sound particularly happy at all. Just somebody who's had a terrible day going to watch a play or to go into a gallery or listen to some poetry or go to see some comedy, and so that automatically preordains their reaction to whatever is being displayed to them. The chances are that it's nothing to do with you or even your work. It's to do with them. It's always to do with them.
It could come from somebody who's in a happy mood.
Yeah, but then it will be delivered in such a way that is positive. It'll be development feedback rather than damaging criticism.
Yeah, it's a statement.
Yeah.
It always ties into how does it make me feel in my gut.
Ooh, yes. The gut reaction to criticism is anger.
Yes.
There are certainly some other feelings and emotions that bubble up when you are hit with criticism. Sadness, shame, that feeling of being bludgeoned. You feel dismissed, you feel ridiculed, you feel condemned. It's a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
Like it's a personal attack on you.
That's how I always know it. If it's about me in a personal way, then this is where I draw the line.
Yeah.
I love feedback. As actor, you're trained when people come after the play or your performance and they just say thank you, all you do is just say thank you back. That's it. Otherwise, my goodness, you can go down a path that you don't want to go. You can actually creatively destroy yourself and your artistic confidence. We always want to grow as artists and creatives, so good criticism will expand us and we'll get that inner sense of relief. Somebody spotted something I've struggled with that, but now I've got the tool to resolve it, and it's pointed, which means it's clearly directed. It's not ambiguous in intent.
Yeah, when it's the other way around and it's withering and it's ambiguous and it's personal, it's inaccurate. It's just blanket statements a lot of the time. But, you know, we've said this before, we'll say it again. These people who criticise you are without a doubt blocked artists. Creativity is the only cure for criticism. The one and only cure.
And do not forget to give yourself lots and lots of praise
And love.
and remind yourself of all the compliments that you've received in your life. Joe, I know you absolutely love doing the detective work exercise.
I got my detective hat on. Off I went.
Sherlock Holmes.
Super sleuthing like Sherlock Holmes. Because it's a really fantastic exercise. You have to be just quick. Don't think about it for too long. It was wonderful. It starts with asking you, what was your favourite childhood toy?
Aww.
Mine was Biffa Beans.
Oh.
He was so loved that his beans fell out. And so he had a bean transfusion. It really gets you thinking as well, because it asks you a question, what do your parents think about artists?
Yes.
And I literally just put, they're okay. I think that's what they think. I don't think they really
Ever
think
ventured.
anything more than that.
Right.
I just don't think there would be any particular emotion.
And that's okay. There was one particular line that I absolutely loved in that exercise, and Julia speaks to what we're actually doing. And she said, we are retrieving moments and misplaced fragments of ourselves, which leads us into,
we're taking a stop on our wanderings, so let's take a moment, take in the scenery and reflect.
and this is the moment for me to ring my feng shui bell.
So everybody, how about you take a moment to think back and see if there are any fragments of yourself that you have misplaced, lost, forgotten, or plainly neglected.
Were there any activities you used to enjoy?
Any skills or talents that you practiced as a child?
Or any forgotten praise and compliments you have received? That's a nice one. I quite like that one.
Some nice things for people to think about there.
I'm sure each one of us has tons and tons of compliments that we've received in our lives.
I was told to do something at work, actually, not by work, but by my husband. And he said to me, put a little folder in your inbox entitled praise. And into that, every time someone thanks you for something, pop it in the praise folder. And I love that.
This leads us to growth.
Finally.
This little section was quite challenging. I tend to run 100 miles an hour, and I'm one of those people who very rarely stop to check in with themselves in order to see if there is any self-nurturing needed.
Because you gotta do that, Amelia. Sometimes you have to just have a pause before you can grow. Have a little moment before another shoot is grown out.
We're going back to gardening. You plant something and it's like, oh, this is taking forever to grow. And then one day you wake up and it's like, oh my goodness, this plant grew overnight.
Jack's beanstalk.
What was nice about this section, it acted as a reminder that growth is a sign of healing and forward motion.
Yeah.
But it's not linear.
No.
It's erratic and spasmodic. It occurs in spurts.
Spurts and bursts.
Spurts and bursts. Exactly.
I'm reminded of the story of the tortoise and the hare.
Oh, yes.
Because it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Mm-hmm.
If you sprint to the end, you might lose all of the joyous growth that could come in that journey. They always say it's the journey, not the destination, don't they? That's so cliched, but it's true.
I can remember countless moments when I was involved in a creative project, and you get to that point of like the crunch point, and you need to push through to the end. And in that last stretch of that marathon, I needed to take a day off because nothing was happening and I got blocked, and I had to step away from it in order to just think about something else.
Yeah.
Read a book, take a walk, eat a nice meal, and then go back to what I was doing. And bang, it grew. It was done. It's almost like you need to step away from something in order to actually complete it. What was really important to be reminded of was creative projects require a period of stagnation and rest. Mm-hmm. And within that rest, you're also working. Whatever is going on, somewhere in that universe, those creative cogwheels are turning. And what's wonderful about the morning pages, that's where we rest. Mm-hmm. Technically, we don't rest because we do them every morning, and that's what keeps us going creatively. But that's that space where it's okay for us to say it's okay to just do nothing today.
Bear in mind that as you're growing as a child, you grow in your sleep.
Yes, oh my goodness, Jo. That's a good comparison. Solitude as well.
Making commitment to just having time on your own. Because, I mean, I love people. I love my husband. I love my cat. But sometimes you just want to be in your own space. And I do find that solitude for me is going out into nature.
That's very true.
But don't forget, folks, to reach out for support. Don't forget, Amelia, to ask for help. Ask your nurturing friends, the ones who give you a sense of your own competency and possibility, the ones who treat you really well.
Yes.
They know that you're a wonderful, bright, creative being, so they're going to just reinforce that in yourself and tell you to take a step back and give yourself some love.
There is nothing more healing for me than a nice cup of tea and a friend who just listens.
I found a lot of warmth in the tasks that we had to do this week.
The tasks were immense.
They were so good, you know, just taking us back to childhood and making us think about what we admire in people.
I found them very healing because throughout the whole of The Artist's Way, Julia always speaks to us as creative children. And the tasks were all about be a child, listen to what your heart is telling you. Especially those two tasks where we had to list out the 5 people that we admire and then the 5 people we wished we'd met, but unfortunately they're dead. Mm-hmm. And then she said, look, go with those that your heart wants to go with. Because sometimes we go, oh, you know, I admire, let's say, Thomas Edison. Mm-hmm. But perhaps Dali was on your list. And your heart wants to go with this playful man. Mm-hmm. Go with that. Just do what your child within you wants to do.
So my child within me would really have liked to have met Oliver Reed. He was a bad boy, Oliver Reed. He was a whiskey drinking, womanizing scamp. I would love to have gone out for a drink with him and danced. I genuinely would.
There you go. Is that allowing ourselves to just be playful and go with the fun of life rather than, oh, we've got to be all serious and intellectual.
Absolutely.
You know? No way. As Children, we're so creative. We're always busy doing something, aren't we? And also have that freedom of not really worrying about what anybody says about what we're doing.
Indeed.
It's just play, isn't it?
It's just play. And talking of which, oh my goodness me, Amelia, what do I see before my very eyes?
What is it?
Well, it says Inspiration Station. We'd best make a stop.
In Scotland, it seems, this week.
Indeed it does. Toot toot.
Ooh! What has inspired you this week, Jo?
Well, this week it was wonderfully timely, and actually one might say synchronicity struck.
Wow.
Because I received a lovely text from my friend Gareth. It was just gorgeous, so I thought I'd share that. It's called Why I Adore the Night, and it's by Jeanette Winterson. I have noticed that when all the lights are on, people tend to talk about what they're doing, their outer lives. Sitting round in candlelight or firelight, people start to talk about how they're feeling, their inner lives. They speak subjectively, they argue less, there are longer pauses. To sit alone without any electric light is curiously creative. I have my best ideas at dawn or at nightfall, but not if I switch on the lights. Then I start thinking about projects, deadlines, demands, and the shadows and shapes of the house become objects, not suggestions. Things that need to be done and not a background to thought. I think that's great. And that speaks to me about solitude.
Oh, goodness me, that's beautiful.
It's nice, isn't it? What have you got for us today, Amelia?
Well, the section about synchronicity reminded me of a little nugget of wisdom I actually read once, and it was written by Jack Canfield, and he speaks to two types of actions, and it goes like this. Some actions fall into the category of what I call obvious actions. They operate under the common sense principle that says if you really want to succeed in any arena of life, be it in business, finances, or relationships, you first have to put yourself in the game. To borrow somewhat of a crude phrase, if you want to shoot a moose, you have to go where the moose are. By regularly placing yourself in environments where you are likely to encounter whatever it is you desire, you increase your odds and you strengthen the magnetic signal you're broadcasting to the universe. Next are what I call inspired actions. Inspired actions are impulses that arise within you that don't appear to logically or directly correlate with your goal. For example, you may be driving to work one morning when you have the sudden inclination to get off the freeway and stop for a latte at a favorite coffee house. While thoughts like these are easily dismissed as random or meaningless, the truth is that you have no idea where that impulse came from or where it may lead you if you choose to follow it. For all you know, your future wife or husband was guided by a similar urge and is sitting in that coffee house at the precise moment the thought crossed your mind.
That is so gorgeous. I love it. It really does hit the spot when it comes to synchronicity or serendipity in that case. We have come to the end of our podcast for this week, Amelia. And next week, it's week 4 of The Artist's Way. Can you believe we're at week 4 already?
I cannot believe it.
What are we going to be discovering next week?
We'll be talking about recovering a sense of integrity. This is a bit of a mystery sandwich. We can't tell you much about this week. All we can say is that you will spend lots of time with yourself in introspection and notice the change of patterns and behaviour in your routine as you start to recover your creativity more and more.
Oh, well, that is a mystery
sandwich.
Thank you so much for wandering with us, and remember to
always be on the lookout for the presence of wonder.
See you next time.